Talkshop.
This is the Talkshop with me, Masechaba, Moshoeshoe, on SAfm 104 to 107. We're looking at the Henley Business School MBA tonight with Professor Jon Foster-Pedley, who is the Dean of the Henley Business School. As we wrap up the year 2011 and we start making plans for 2012, it is also essential to consider and plan for the career paths which we would like to take. Furthering one's studies is also an option, and a very, very important option. And today we talk about the Henley Business School MBA and what makes the degree relevant to South Africa and the rest of the African continent. Prof, thank you so much for coming through. Welcome onto the Talkshop.
Thanks very much, Masechaba.
MBA, I mean, that strikes terror into everybody's heart. What kind of person goes for an MBA?
Anyone who's got some ambition, who's motivated. I mean, I know people get scared of it, but you really don't have to be. I mean, an MBA was designed as something to help people learn to do their business better, to become better managers, better leaders. And so it's designed to be really useful, not to be something that's terrifying. I think this whole image about MBAs has got out of hand, that you think it's a really elitist qualification. It's a badge that's going to put you in the top rank, And sure, an MBA should be elite, but not elitist. It should be something that really anybody who's ambitious, who wants to develop themselves and build confidence should do.
I've heard that if one is looking to do their MBA, they need to set aside a year minimum, if not 2 years of their lives where no social life, no interaction with family and friends, just a hermit who's focused on the MBA if they want to pass.
Oh, well, I think you should tell that to some of the students I've met, because I don't think they recognize that scenario at all. I think a lot of them have a really good time. Look, there's a whole set of different MBAs you can do. You can do a full-time one just for a year, which is a bit of a bubble, but it's very deep immersion. Or you can do a modular one that takes a couple of years, and so you can still carry on working. What we do at Henley, we do a 3-year one, a flexible one for more experienced people. And we do it on purpose, and the idea is that why should you have to make it so difficult on your work and your life and your home life and studies? Why can't you put it all together in a way that's humane and you can manage? And so we try and do that. So we make an MBA that's manageable, that's flexible, that allows people like you and me to just go ahead and do it.
And continue with working, continue with home life and that.
Yeah.
I understand that if one is looking to do an MBA, the best advice is do it later on in life. How true is this?
It's a very interesting point, Masechaba, because if you come straight after your first degree and do an MBA, you've got a lot of knowledge, and so it's sitting in your head, all that theory, all that stuff, all that exam stuff that frankly you probably forget after a couple of years. But you know how it is. You get into work and you start trying things out, and then you test those ideas and you start building up some experience and seeing things and learning things from other people, and before long you've got this whole wealth of experience. And so if you come to an MBA, which is really not a deep academic degree, but a much more generalist thing, something that's going to help you grow and become an all-round business person or all-round manager or leader, it's really good to have some experience. And it helps you when you're studying, because it's a very interactive sort of program. You're arguing, you're talking with everybody all the time. If your fellow students have also got a lot of good ideas, so that gives you a lot of context to play with when you're talking to the others.
Are you planning on doing an MBA? What is stopping you from taking that leap? If there are questions that you'd like answered, give us a ring, 0891 104 207, 0891 104 207, or SMS 34701. SMSs are charged at R2. Or maybe you have just completed your MBA and would love to share your experience in order to motivate others who are looking to start theirs. Joining us in the studio is the Dean of the Henley Business School, Professor Jon Foster-Pedley. Professor, let's talk about the Henley Business School. Now, I understand that this is one of the oldest business schools from Europe. How do you make it relevant for not only South Africa, but the continent?
I love that question. It's a great question, because people say, what is this international business school? What's the relevance for Africa? Well, we've actually been here for 20 years. We're actually one of the longest standing business schools in South Africa. We've been here for 20 years. We're accredited here. We're the only overseas business school accredited by the Council on Higher Education to give MBAs in South Africa. So we give a local qualification and an international qualification. So we're really well placed to kind of position ourselves in South Africa. We've got about 1,000 alumni, many of whom I'm sure you would know because you're pretty well connected, I gather. People tell me.
People can be very misleading.
No, I don't think so.
But when we look at the reach of the Henley Business School outside of South Africa on the continent, do you have students that are coming in from the rest of the continent coming to study here, and how do you set it up?
Yeah, in fact, what Henley is, we've got a business school in the UK, and Henley South Africa is a business school which is part of that, which is also part of the University of Reading, which is one of the top 1% universities in the world. And we're one of the only triple accredited business schools in the world, one of the very few. 1% of business schools are triple accredited, which I'll explain to you in a minute. And so we actually run MBAs in the UK and in Hong Kong and in Germany and Scandinavia and Malta and in South Africa. And we do attract students from all over. And in South Africa, we have people who work in government, who are entrepreneurs, who are working in the media, entertainers, some of them, sports people. And so we have a whole range of people. And we attract people from Mozambique, from Zimbabwe, and all over. But the question about the international MBA that really intrigues me is people say, let's have an African model of an MBA, which I'm completely empathetic with. At the same time, you probably wouldn't say, let's have a European MBA or an American MBA. You would say, let's have a multinational, international MBA. And I think that's what South Africa needs. What we need here is to look out, to grow, to be ambitious, to have a sense of our real purpose in the world, that we can make South Africa something that's really fantastic. And to do that, we seriously need to be internationally connected. So while, yes, we need to have an African or South African flair and context for it, but above all, we need to give people a confidence to be international. And that's really part of what we do. We're big on building people's confidence. We don't want people to come to an MBA and be scared by it. In fact, our job, if we're any good at educating, is to make you better. So you come out able to do things and very confident in what you can do.
When people talk about this African MBA, or at least African Values MBA, do they put forward what it is exactly that they mean? Because that's such a general statement.
Well, I think one of the most wonderful expressions of that is when people talk about Ubuntu. Let's have an MBA that really encapsulates the values of consciousness and respect for other people. And I think that any good education process must do that. My absolute credo is that education must be respectful. That anyone who comes to do an MBA, you respect that. And our job is to be respectful. Now, respect is not a soft thing. When we look at somebody who's doing the MBA, let's say you come and do our MBA, Masechaba, which I hope you will one day. And what we do, we look at you and say, well, what is your full potential? What are you really capable of? Even that you don't necessarily imagine in some ways. And that's what we work with. We say, this is who we are trying to allow to come out, and our education draws that person out and allows them to grow. So that's what I mean. So I think those sort of values are absolutely across the world. They're foundation human values. Yeah.
But what about business being a cutthroat world, being about number one, being about profit making, and not necessarily about others and the communities that you're working in? How then do we deal with that?
Well, I think you can do two things with looking at business. One is you can see it as that cutthroat and a red in tooth and claw and a me first or business. But actually business isn't really like that. I mean, business is more about collaboration and in competition, if you really think about it. And business is there to create value for people. I say to people, I teach strategy, so I say to people, strategy is about doing good. If you do good for your customers, good for your people who work for you, good for your clients, they'll come to you. You're adding value to your life. So I actually think that we need to think of business as being a force for good in the world. And that's why our need to be ethical and have strong governance around business is so important. So we spend a lot of time having these arguments, and they're not easy arguments, because obviously if you're, no, you've got to be very selfish and driven for yourself.
You've got to make money. You're a business, you're not a charity.
But you make money because people want to give you money, because you give stuff that people like, and that's a part of having imagination in your life. We're so set on having logic and intellect in our lives, but education should draw out imagination and potential and creativity just as much as it does with intellect. And that's what we're looking, any good education system or process needs to do is really draw people out so they become something, that's their better selves. And business should be like that too. It must be like that.
I want to talk about this triple accreditation, because you've already told us about the two accreditations. I want to talk about the third one. But before we go there, let's take Strini in Durban. Strini, good evening to you and welcome onto the Talkshop.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for
good
calling
day to
in.
the speaker. I'd just like to find out, I'm not inquiring really about the course content or the difficulty or ease of the actual course, but I'm a visually impaired individual, and I would like to find out how is your school catered for someone with my needs, because I have done an MBA through Wales. I started the MBA, and I almost completed it, was just about 2 courses short, and I could not complete it because no one actually caters for people that are visually impaired. And does your school do it? And how can I get more information?
We hear you. Thank you so much. Srini, listen on the radio. Thanks for the call. Srini says that he's visually impaired. Would the Henley Business School be able to assist him? He's already tried an MBA with another institution, and they were not able to cater for him.
Can I take his details and come back to him on that? I mean, my instant reaction is yes, of course we can, but I'm not going to give an instant reaction. What I'd like to do is I'd like to talk to people. I'd like to take that question really seriously because it's an important one. So if I may, if we can take your details and I can call you later and I can come back to you with the best answer I can on that, because I would really like to make sure that you can do an MBA with us.
Srini, we'd like to pass your details on to Professor Jon Foster-Pedley, Dean of the Henley Business School. So we will be doing that. Let's talk about the triple accreditation, Prof.
Well, people, when they're choosing an MBA, they say, well, how's it ranked? So you look at the rankings and say, well, this one's better than this one, And then the other thing is accreditation. So what's the difference? Well, my wife's a doctor. She's a very good doctor, I have to say that, because she might be listening. Because I'm in big trouble and my 2 little kids are listening, and then I'll be in serious trouble when I get home. She's a great doctor, okay. And she's got a big smile, and people go and speak to her, and they come out and say, what a fantastic Dr. Carla is, But how do you really know? Because people who say she's good, that's like rankings. That's a popularity stakes. But how do you really know? In fact, you only really know if your doctor's good does she do good diagnostics? Is her CPD up to date? Does she have a good referral network? Does she keep good records? Are her finances okay? Does she just know what her drugs are? Etc., etc. Well, the best people to know that are other doctors and other experienced doctors and people in the medical profession, maybe in different countries. So accreditation is when you get other business schools who maybe are competitors internationally, senior academics and administrators, they all sit on the panels and they come and investigate you and they study you and they tell you what's right and wrong with you and they say this is what you've got to do to get better, and they give you some time to get it better. And there's 3 forms of accreditation. There's the American one, and the American business schools. There's the European one, that's called EQUIS for European business schools, and the Association of MBA in the UK. Now, very few business schools have 3 accreditations. We do. In fact, we're the only business school in South Africa that has triple accreditation. In fact, I like to say we've got quadruple because we're locally accredited as well.
I was about to ask that as well. So we're talking about quadruple accreditation.
Yeah. But the benefit of that, what it means is you get an international MBA when you come to Henley. But how do you know that's really substantial and it's believed in and you can travel with that? Well, when you've got triple accreditation, you've had some of the toughest people in the game assessing you, and it doesn't make you arrogant. I mean, can you imagine when you've been trained by the best, they don't just tell you what's right with you, they tell you what's wrong with you, and they keep telling you what's wrong with you. So it's a very humbling experience. So we're big on being tested and challenged in this way, and it's a repetitive process. So that's what triple accreditation means, and I think it's much more important than the rankings, which you can have a big smile and people say nice things about you.
And I hear, also with the MBAs, you have people that come from business schools that are ranked highly, but then they say, I learned nothing from it, or even I can't take it anywhere because it's not recognized by other, by the working world. So again, I guess the ranking and accreditation argument comes into play there.
Yeah, it's really important. But the other thing, the real reason to do an MBA, actually, it's a very personal thing. You do change. You come do an MBA, you will be thinking, you'll be challenged, and it's a wonderful opportunity to relax and think and take things seriously and really decide what it is that you can and want to do, and to put some investment into yourself. So a good MBA will leave you with a lot more questions than it does answers, because it's trying to take you from being a manager all the way up to board level thinking. So you can be an international director, you can work at that level, you can deal with that level of complexity and still be humble.
I've got a couple of SMSs coming in, and we've spoken about the triple accreditation, or as Professor Jon Foster-Pedley says, quadruple accreditation status of one of the oldest business schools from Europe, and that is the Henley Business School. Here's one that says, how much does the international MBA cost? Is it different to an MBA from an institution that is said to be homegrown?
No, in fact, our prices are pretty much par for the course in the current market. Our MBA is exactly the same one as you'll do in the UK. In fact, you can take some modules in the UK if you want to. We're taught by the same people, same syllabus, but actually it's about 30 or 40% cheaper than you would get the same one in the UK, because so we manage the pricing so it's competitive in the local market. If you want to know how much it costs, well, you're going to buy a second-hand Merc, and it's about the same as a second-hand Merc. I know, because I'm trying to find a second-hand Merc. It's about the cost of an MBA.
That puts it into perspective, definitely.